Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. I'm here to ask and answer one simple question. WTF is Ascendant. It's by a company called Hapa Games. You probably haven't heard of them. The reason is, not indeed because I possess some sort of hipster knowledge that you do not. It's that it's a bunch of blokes working out of a garage in Oregon, which does not tend to lend itself to fame, fortune, and large amounts of recognition. At least not yet, anyway. It's rather fantastic that garage development actually exists. You can head over to their website and have a look at their garage. Quite a nice looking garage, actually. Not too fancy, but we're talking about laptops sitting on workbenches. Literal workbenches made out of particle board. That's how garage this thing actually is. What is it, though? What's the game about? Well, it is a brawler with some roguelike elements. So it's a roguelite brawler, which I think is a very elegant way of describing it. I love the term roguelite. I don't know who coined it. Might have been Northern Lion. Maybe. Not 100% sure. Maybe someone came up with it before that. But it's a hell of a lot better than procedural death labyrinth. Wow, I can't even say it. You see what the problem with that is? I can't even say it reliably. If I can't pronounce your genre, it's a bad genre. Roguelite works really well. It's a nice way to describe the fact that there are some rogue-inspired elements within your game. But the game is predominantly a different genre, which in this case is very true because it is a 2D brawler. So, let's find out what's going on with it. First, we'll head to the settings menu, and then we'll dive into what will most likely be a couple of runs, because this game is not easy, and I have a tendency of getting crushed by the second boss. So, let's have a look. You got a few resolution options here and there. I'm not massively impressed by the number of resolution options available. If I wanted to say upscale, or downscale, or whatever, I don't really have the option to do that. You've got full screen on or off here. There doesn't appear to be a borderless window mode. The full screen mode would seem to be an exclusive full screen, so if you're looking for that option, it's not there. However, it doesn't constrain the cursor, which means if you have a second monitor, well, off it wanders, there it goes, and it's gone. Fix that. That will be good. Constrain your cursors, damn it. Don't let them wander around. Get your cursor spayed or neutered. Help control the cursor population. Outside of that, you got your post-processing level and AA, which you can crank up all the way to 8, and you should, because it looks quite nice, if you can. Auto-toggle your minimap, and then you've got keyboard aiming, either mouse or keyboard aiming. I strongly suggest mouse. Strongly suggest mouse. Trust me. It works very, very well. Outside of that, that's really about it. So, let's head to controls. This might be a bit of a problem for you. So there's two issues here. The first one is it actually doesn't appear to have controller support. If it does, then, well, I have my controller in my hand right here. This is me hammering buttons. Yeah, doesn't do anything. So if it does have controller support, damned if I know how to turn it on. Secondly, these keys cannot be rebound. Now, for the most part, I would imagine for some people, these keys are going to be mostly fine. For me, the main problem I've got with it is the dash keys, Q and E. Since I'm using WASD to move around, I'm having to move fingers to actually hit dash, while simultaneously also moving around. It's awkward. Don't like it too much. It's taken a lot of getting used to, and I still haven't got it. I would much prefer a double tap on the movement keys for dodging. I feel that would work a lot better, even if it would require twice the inputs, or indeed just anything else that I could rebind to. You can't rebind the keys. That's not very good. No. Outside of that, there are no actual game options. There are, however, a list of discoveries right here, including blessings. I've discovered 4 out of 21 of them. And the definitions, there are 60 of those in total. Lots of pages of these things. What are these? Well, these are character upgrades you can get, and you can place them in different parts of your body. So a Blessing of Agony would give my weapon attacks the ability to set foes ablaze, but if I put it in my body, it would cause explosions when hit. And I don't know what it would do if I socket it into a spell, because it doesn't tell you that, and you have to discover that on your own. It's got roguelike elements in it. Shouldn't surprise you. Then you got Spirits, which I have apparently discovered a few of, as you can see. Doesn't really tell you a huge amount about that. Spirit of Luck, you feel lucky. Well, thanks for the bloody information. Spirit of Haggling, reduces shop prices. Okay, that makes sense. I imagine the lucky one is for drops, but there's a lot of these that you can get. 57, in fact, which is fairly impressive. There are 16 weapons in the game. I've only found 4 of them. outside of your default, and then there are 14 different spells in the game as well. So this collection keeps track of everything that you have discovered. There's quite a lot to find. So, let's dive into Ascendant, show you what's going on. As usual, it's a roguelike light thingy. Yes, one of those. That's accurate, isn't it? Still less difficult to say than Procedural Death Labyrinth, so, you know. That means that the play is going to be different every time I do it, so I have no idea what's going to happen. So, we have a choice of demigod here. There are 7 in total. I've only unlocked 2. By unlocked, I mean these are the ones you get by default. You'll also notice that you do have the ability to bring a second person onto the ride, which actually might work with the controller. Let's hit the start button. Nope, doesn't. Okay, so, I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with the controller support for this game, but yeah, you can bring someone else along for the ride, but it doesn't have any online multiplayer. It's local only. So, you've got Memnon, who is your basic guy. He's got more health than this fellow over here, but this guy heals after slaying bosses, but he does have a disadvantage. And they've got different sockets and setups. We're going to go with the standard character here. So, what exactly are you doing? Well, you're a demigod, and you're invading the worlds of your rivals. It's really that simple. There's not actually that much plot to it, although there's little pieces of lore scattered around the place, but they're fairly short, they're fairly obscure, they don't really tell you too much. But here we go. Each of the levels is based on a season. As you can see, this is early spring. I haven't got too far into it. I'm going to have to admit, I have failed a lot of runs. This game is not forgiving at all. So, welcome to the world of Ascendant. And the first thing that's probably striking you is the aesthetic, and if it's not, I've got to ask you, are you sodding blind? So, that kind of thing's also always going to be kind of subjective. But this game, at least in my honest opinion, looks pretty damn gorgeous. It uses a really interesting color palette that actually reminds me a little bit of Drinkbox's really awesome game, Guacamelee. It is not a game that plays like Guacamelee, although it does appear to have some minor mechanical influence in the fact that it really loves you launching enemies into other enemies. But that could just be a coincidence. Regardless, though, it has this bold color palette that has, what I can tell, some influences from Mexican and possibly South American cultures. It looks at maybe a little bit Aztec, a little bit Mayan. But it has certainly a very unique aesthetic, and it's gorgeous. And what shocks me more is the fact that this game is using procedurally generated levels, and yet it's able to make levels that look great. Now, I suppose it's not as difficult as it first sounds. You think, oh, well, you know, procedurally generated games are going to look hideous. You know, if you look at anything like, say, Sir, You Are Being Hunted. That's a game that is not particularly handsome in any real respect when it comes to its aesthetic. But that's also a 3D game. In this case, they've just used some really, really high-quality art assets and had the procedural generating engine thingy, which one assumes is some kind of sorcery. I think they have a mini warlock that comes with every copy of this game that generates the levels for you. Well, maybe that was just the special edition, who knew? Regardless, whatever it is they're using for that, their algorithm is really, really good, and it seems to be generating some very organic levels. A lot of these levels feel like they were designed by a real person, which obviously isn't true, because you get them every single time in a different configuration. I haven't run across a level that seems similar to another level. And that surprises me, because I've done about maybe 15 runs up to this point. They haven't been that long, because I die very, very quickly in this game. But you're getting a lot of unique level designs, and it really does feel like a new story every time you play it, which is the strength of using procedural generation. But more often than not, procedural generation can mean that the individual level quality is vastly reduced. Alright, let's go shopping, shall we? What can we get? Now there are 2 different kinds of shops that I've found in this game. One requires influence points, which you can see here, it's currency, and others require you to spend your health. And I think we might do that. We might buy a new weapon, because weapons are very influential in this game. I spent 2 hearts of health in order to buy this weapon right here. Let's have a look at the stats on it. So here you go. This is your standard weapon, Memnon's Razor. And this is the Disrupting Curved Blade of the Pupil. I believe, in fact, I can almost tell you for certain that these weapons are actually varied. While I did say there are 14 weapons in the game, they have stats variants on them. They have prefixes and suffixes. So this does a lot more damage, great stagger damage. It's a bit slower. 10% chance to auto parry when hit. plus heal a quarter heart after picking up a stat boost, plus spells ignore shields. This could be a very, very powerful addition to my arsenal, but I did spend health to get it. I could spend again. It's a bit of a risk, but yeah, I'm going to buy a spirit as well. I'm hoping that on this level I won't lose too much health, because there are not that many ways of regenerating the health. Alright, there we go. No pot is safe. Okay, so hopefully this means that I'll be able to gain a larger amount of influence and keys and loot from destroying pots. Now, I sacrificed about half my health to get those items, so I hope I don't get the more difficult one of the 2 bosses that it generally throws at me on level 1. There's one I can consistently beat without taking too much damage. There's another one that is about 50-50, so I'm certainly hoping that we don't run into too many problems with that. Now, navigation-wise, as you've probably noticed... Oh, good, it's the easier one. Thank God for that. And one of the more amusing ones, I've got to say as well. You've probably noticed that the navigation is 2D and involves kind of going from plane to plane. You can go up, down, left, and right. There is a clear indication of where you actually are. He's tipping over. There we go. That's what we like to see. And now we're just going to smack them all about, because that's just how we roll. Hopefully, we might take a little bit of damage, but not too much. There we go. The boss, thankfully, on this level is not particularly challenging. The other one, which is this giant worm thing, is a little bit more difficult. And I got myself a blessing as well, so I can socket it into things. Now, launched foes freeze an area around their impact point, or spells chill and slow foes. That could be useful. Or, I don't know what the... I'd like to find out what this is, so I'm going to sock it into the body here. Greatly slows air descent while casting spells. Well, that may very well have been the obviously worst of the 3, so... That's unfortunate, but never mind. We live and we learn. So on to the next level, where I usually die horribly. The exploration aspect of it is very similar to a lot of these roguelite games that we've been getting lately. It will give you a set of rooms. The map will gradually expand as you go through them. It will generate a new room almost every time. Oh, I already love this little upgrade that I got here. I got some health, and I managed to get some cash out of the pots there. Here's hoping we find some more pots to throw around. That would just be absolutely wonderful, wouldn't it? There's another pot. Didn't get too much out of that. That's disappointing, but never mind, it happens. I'm just going to set that barrel off there. Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. Much, much better. There are a couple of different room types. In order to leave a room, you must, of course, destroy all of the enemies in that room. Now, my spells ignore shields, so this should be fairly useful against this guy. There you go. Have some of that. That should deal with that quite nicely. No problem at all. We can just eliminate him from here. The regular rooms, like I said, they require you to beat all the enemies. They will then spawn a chest, which will contain something. In this case, I got a stat up, which is great because it synergizes with some of the items that I've got there. It'll usually be a minor upgrade, like plus 5% stagger damage, or plus 5% magic damage, or something resistance. Occasionally, it'll give you a minor item or a spirit, or something along those lines. Outside of that, there are shrine rooms, which are usually health ups. They'll restore all your health. There are then shops, and then there are chest rooms, which will usually give you a major item, either a spirit or one of the things that you can socket in there, or a weapon, which is usually a really big deal because it makes a massive difference to your character. There are also rooms that are locked off. You have to find key drops in order to get into those. Those, more often than not, are shops, actually. A lot of the shops are locked away. There's a key, actually, just dropping from that chest there. So, you will find some nice stuff in there, and the shops are pretty essential to properly customizing your playstyle rather than just letting the game get away with giving you whatever it wants. Onto the spikes it goes. There you go. And then you've got a boss room at the end, and then that's how you progress to the next level. It's really that simple. So what about the combat system? My apologies. Because of that screen constraint problem that I was explaining earlier, I accidentally clicked off of the game. That needs to be fixed. It really, really does for a game like this. It is a brawler, even though it has these roguelite elements to it. It feels like a brawler. A simplistic one, but a brawler nonetheless. It's got a lot of juggling. It involves dashing through projectiles like that. You also have a parry, which I'll try and show you here, which I've messed up horribly. I'll just get rid of this and then try it again. Go on, come on. Bring it, bring it. There we go. So you can parry attacks back at you, and it takes a good amount of timing to do that. And it's a lot of kind of beat-em-up sort of action. You don't have a huge move set. You've got the sort of aerial attacks, you've got that launch, and then you've got your spells. You can only have one spell at a time. This is my basic spell, the Soul Shard, which uses that mana bar under there. You can swap it out for all sorts of different spells which have different effects. And they're almost all better. Looks like there's a treasure room in here, so let's see what we get out of that. It is a Breath of Granbois, which is a one-shot consumable, which I can use to recover health. That's actually really, really good, and I'll probably need it for the boss fight, because I've never beaten a level 2 boss as of yet. A lot of them are pretty difficult. Most of the... In fact, it may be every single level 2 boss, because I don't actually recall any other level 2 boss. It's this sort of burrowing worm thing, which comes through the ground in different places and also spawns ads. It's nasty. It's unpleasant. There's no real doubt about that. But while it is a simplistic brawling system, it is very tight. The controls feel really solid, with the exception of this damn dash button being in a place that I personally do not approve of. And it feels good. I think the launching is what really sets it apart from other brawlers. I know some brawlers have launchers, don't get me wrong, but this game also almost seems to be fixated on the idea, which again is quite similar to the way Guacamelee did things. And I think that's definitely a good way of doing things. Launch enemies into other enemies. It requires some split-second aiming, which is good. What can we get here? Don't want to buy a heart. Oh, I can't afford the Spirit of the Hoarder. Can I afford Genesis? Yes, I can. That is a spell. It's probably pretty good. We're going to have that. There we go. Alright. Has a 15% chance to fire projectiles randomly every 0.1 second when you use it. It does a bit more damage. Not a huge amount more damage. It's probably not a brilliant spell, but it's better than nothing. Alright. And I still have that health regeneration consumable as well. So the brawling feels good. And that's unusual, because what's the biggest criticism that I have leveled against most of these roguelike games when I've done my videos on them? Yes, the combat system suffers from... I don't even think it has to. You know, it's the same thing I said about Tower of Guns. Like, the shooting isn't really all that interesting, and you're limited in terms of the number of weapons you've got. I said it in Our Darker Purpose. Look, the combat system isn't very enjoyable. It's not very engaging. I said the same thing with Full Mojo Rampage when I did my alpha strike of that. A lot of games in this genre have fairly weak combat systems. Now, what this game has done differently, which is quite similar to what Risk of Rain did differently, is it seems to have started with a principle and then built the roguelite elements around that. It said, we wanted to make a brawler, and then they added the stuff on after that, whereas everyone else has said, we want to make a roguelite. And how are we going to do our combat? Well, I guess we can put a dodge roll in, and you can click and fire projectiles. Well, in this case, you got a sword, and it's a 2D scrolling game. It's not isometric, it's not top-down, and it feels very unique and very satisfying. It's the bloody brawler, isn't it? Okay, well, let's see if we can not mess this up then. Here we go. Okay, so I've got my big weapon, and you know I was talking about the launching being vitally important earlier? Well, you want to launch the enemies directly at the boss. That's exactly what I'm going to do, and hopefully try not to get killed by the boss in the process. And of course use my spell Genesis to do a little bit of damage as well. Now, you can dodge out of the way of this if you don't suck, which is of course my problem, because I absolutely do. I mentioned before that I do have a bit of a problem with the dodge system, in that the keys that it uses are, in my opinion, not optimal for the purpose, because you're trying to move around and then you have to move your hands in order to hit the dodge button. So again, rebindable keys I think would be very useful. I think we might actually beat it this time, which would be wonderful, because I've never beaten that boss before. There we go. Oh, there's the dodge. You see, I'm a little bit more focused now. I'm trying to impress you, and I'm not going to be able to, so I'll probably die straight away on level 3, but never mind. There you go. Have a bit more of that. I'm gonna have this guy. I'm gonna have him. Have some more spells. I'm doing minor damage and trying not to take damage from him. I love the way they come in riding on this beast as well, you know? For all the aesthetic, and I did beat it, fantastic. For all the praise that I put upon the aesthetic, it also has this just neat little sense of humor and whimsy about it. You know, the guy in the guard tower was just trying to taunt you earlier, as you saw on that boss. Oh, that was pretty cool, and how he panics when you knock him over. That is a blessing of Kamoho, which is some kind of shark. Okay, where do I want to put it on? Let's put it on our weapon. Attacks can instantly slay weakened foes. Okay, I could definitely see that being useful. It's added to our discovery book. And we're going to go into level 3 for the first time ever. I'm making progress, eventually. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of tender loving care that's been lavished on this game, I have to say. And it looks like we're going to go into a different environment here. Early summer, here we go. Wow, that looks great. It really does. Got a different music track as well, which is also awesome. This game does a hell of a lot of things right. You may have noticed me lavishing, that's a real word, let's go with that. A reasonable amount of praise on it, and there's a reason for that, because there are a lot of these roguelite games around, and most of them do not try what this one has, and most of them do not execute it anywhere near as well. Not only does this game have excellent procedural generation, yeah, the shark ate it, fantastic, and really cool level design, and of course you don't see the same level every time. The exact opposite, you never see the same level every time. But it's got a decent combat system going for it. It's got these nice, if fairly simplistic, brawler mechanics with weapons that really change up your playstyle in a big way. Things like impaling enemies on spikes, firing enemies into other enemies with the launch ability, doing combos and things like that. And yet, it still maintains all of the item-based exploration and sort of randomized character progression that is available from a roguelite game. And I've been waiting for a game to pull that off, and Risk of Rain was really the only other one that did. This one, I would even maybe go as far as to say that this is even better, because, while Risk of Rain does a lot of things right, the combat in that game actually kind of feels like playing World of Warcraft. Yeah, you're doing kind of an attack rotation. This feels like playing a brawler. And you know I like my brawlers. And a brawler with kind of randomized stats and weapons and stuff like that, with an excellent aesthetic. Yeah. I'm digging this a hell of a lot. I mean, this is a really impressive achievement from a first-time development studio. And these guys went through hell to get it actually made as well. They did a Kickstarter, they managed to raise $10,000, which is of course nowhere near enough to make a game. It's kind of enough to just allow them to finish it. They had to go through Greenlight. They sold a copy on their website, DRM-free, then it finally got into Steam, and they sold it, well, they're currently selling it for $10. And it is magnificent. I mean, almost every part of it I absolutely adore. If I wanted to criticize anything from the presentation standpoint, it would be the sound assets. Yeah? I'm not massively keen on those. The music is fairly generic. It doesn't really inspire me to heroic feats of demigod greatness. And the sound effects aren't particularly good either. The death sounds, I mentioned the idea of whimsy earlier, but the sounds almost sound comical, which I think is unnecessary. I don't think it adds anything to the game in particular. So I'm not really all that impressed, and when you create a combat system in a brawler, it's actually more important than I think you could imagine to have a system that has a really good set of sound assets backing it up, because that allows the player to feel like their attacks have real weight and impact. It's part animation, it's part the tightness of the mechanics, and of course it's obviously the visuals too, but the sound is really vitally important. I don't feel like I'm striking with the power of a demigod. Although that shark thing is kind of funny, if a little bit pixely. I'm not really sure what's going on with that. It's like it doesn't match the resolution of the rest of the game. Outside of that, though, Ascendant is absolutely fantastic so far. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I don't even like this genre. It's difficult for me to find a roguelite game that I'll be really excited about. Even the shooters that I've seen, like Paranormal Activity and Tower of Guns. I like FPS. I do. I really do like FPS. But, honestly, those games, not really my thing. Like I said, a real FPS is better. It sacrifices too much to its roguelite or roguelike sensibilities. This game doesn't sacrifice that much at all. And that's just beautiful. It just benefits from those mechanics. Those mechanics don't hold it back. Alright. Well, that was a tough little challenge because I forgot I could parry, but now I have remembered, and things are wonderful. Ascendant is just great. And I have genuine enthusiasm in saying that my time with this game up to this point has been challenging, it's been thoroughly enjoyable, and each time I've had a different experience. All of the upgrades have significant And I do mean significant impacts on your character, which I love. Each weapon feels, even though it uses the same combos and moves, and that is certainly something I think you could criticize, it still provides a completely different play experience, because the passives that it actually applies to your character are huge. It does so much to your character to change how you play. So when you get a different weapon, you play differently as a direct result. And that's awesome. I love the idea that you get a weapon and it's just got like 4 different new passives that it gives you. It's not just, oh yeah, you could passively have the chance to freeze. Like, no, it's this, and this, and this, and this, and a little bit more of this. And the variants that you can get from your loadouts by placing those spirits in different slots. I think they're called spirits, can't remember. But those abilities that you put in different slots of your body, that's great, because that really adds to the replayability. In a game like this, of course, replayability is extremely important. I don't think anyone's going to dispute that. I've got a decent amount of money. I think we're going to head to this shop. We'll unlock it. It's beautiful. It's accomplished. It controls very well. It's got a crap ton of replayability going for it. It has challenging brawler-focused combat. It's awesome. It's as simple as that. This game is really, really good. And that makes me very, very happy indeed. Because when I got this in my mailbox, like, oh great, it's another Rogue Light. Wonderful. Awesome. I was really begging for another one of those. Turns out, maybe I was. This is okay. This is more than okay. This is actually kind of fantastic. It goes by the name of Ascendant, ladies and gentlemen, and it is available on Steam for $10 or your regional equivalent. I would strongly suggest that you do not ignore it. It does not want to be ignored. It's brave, it's bold, it's bright, it's beautiful, and go and have a look at it. $10. Not much of a risk to take, is it? Absolutely fantastic. My name has been TotalBiscuit, taking a look at Ascendant, which is currently available on Steam. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.